Welcome, everybody. This is Jason, and the name of this week's workshop is Brave Little Tailor. This is part one of a two-part series. It's about converting clothing from Sims 4 to Sims 2. So let's jump right in. What tools will we be using to convert 4 to 2? For this part of the workshop, we need Sims 4 Studio, Blender 2.79 specifically, Milkshape, and Photoshop or some other resource, some other tool that you can use to edit a PNG. What is the workflow for converting clothes 4 to 2? For this portion of the workshop, the process is export the mesh and texture, repose the mesh and export as an OBJ, crop the texture, import the mesh and fit it to a TS2 body, and then remap the mesh. So for this part of the workshop, we're just focusing on the mesh. We're not giving it any kind of animation yet. We begin our journey with Sims 4 Studio. Unfortunately, in order to export the animation skeleton correctly, TS4 must be installed, and the version of Blender that I use for this application is 2.79. In order to get Sims 4 Studio to work, it needs to be configured like this. You need to point it to your Sims 4 game and documents folder and to the correct version of Blender. So we have two options. We can convert from an in-game outfit, or we can convert from something that we've downloaded, something that another creator has created specifically for Sims 4. If we're looking at the in-game files, we would click that CAS button, or if we want to start a new file, we would go My Projects. Once we have created a new project, we make sure that we're in the Studio tab. In the Texture tab at the top of the Studio tab, we make sure that we're selecting the diffuse texture, and then we export it. We just give it a name that we can remember, export it right to our projects folder. Then we go to the Meshes tab, and we export mesh. We just export it. It's going to export as a blend file, and we can save that to the same projects folder, and we're done. We're done with Sims 4 Studio. We open Blender 2.79, and from there we need to open the file that we exported. So we open that Blender file in Blend 2.79. It's going to look something like this. In the animation pane, we need to locate rig, and I'm sorry, I circled the wrong thing there. In the rig, we need to click the little eye icon. That's going to show us the animation skeleton, and we need to click the little arrow icon. That's going to allow us to manipulate the animation joints. So in the modeling pane, it's going to look something like this. We need to right-click the right shoulder joint. What we're doing here, we're converting the TS4 A pose to a TS2 T pose. In the rotation dropdown, we need to make sure that that's set to XYZ Euler. Then we rotate the Y 44 degrees and the Z 9 degrees. Then we right-click the right shoulder, and we do the same thing, except this time we're rotating in the opposite direction on the Y. So that needs to be -44. Then we go File, Export Wavefront OBJ. In the export options, we need to make sure that we're selecting right normals and material groups. Then we just give that object a name, save it to our projects folder as I'm doing here. Next, we open the PNG that we exported from Sims 4 Studio in Photoshop, and it's probably going to be 1024 by 2048. So we've got a lot of wasted space there, and that makes no sense. So we need to resize it. We go to Image Canvas Size, or alternatively, if you're using Windows, it's Control-Alt-C. We make sure that we're locked to the bottom edge because that's where the texture is. And we resize the height to 1024. That's going to leave us something like this. And we can just save the PNG and close Photoshop. Now we get started in Milkshape. We select File, Import Wavefront OBJ, and we import the mesh that we exported from Blender. Then in the Groups tab, we need to delete all of these materials that don't correspond to the Sims 4 Studio mesh. So anything that doesn't begin with S4 Studio, we go ahead and delete those groups. That looks good, but it's a little bit rough. We can select Control A to select everything, and then Vertex Cat's Normal Smoother to smooth it out. That's going to give us a little bit of a clean look. We still need to smooth the edges, but for the time being, that's fine. That we make sure that in the 3D viewport, we have selected colored groups, and we import the OBJ for the Sims 2 body just like this. We can see that it needs some work to fit it to a TS2 body. The base mesh for TS4 is sized a little bit differently than the TS2 mesh. What we need to do here is just grab and smooth vertices until they conform roughly to the TS2 body. We can delete the TS4 hands because we don't really need them. We're going to use TS2 hands and the TS2 neck as well. So we just delete all of those extra vertices that correspond to the TS4 skin. We make sure that we're reshaped and we're done. We now have a mesh from TS4 that now conforms to a TS2 body. We can do some extra steps. We can smooth the faces so that we get rid of those black creases, but that's it for the most part. Hey folks, Editing Jason here. I thought my OBS settings were good. They were perfectly fine last week, but for some reason this week when I did the workshop, I could not pick up the conversation from the chats. What happened here? Rachel asked me about smoothing. I do it in Milkshape. But whatever you're more comfortable with, yes. I mean, for me, I would grab all of the faces on, for example, the apron on the front there, and then regroup and use Cat's Normal Smoother on that group. The mesh is resized to fit the template. We can delete the template and then we select the mesh in the Groups tab. Then we need to go to the Materials tab. We click that New button. With the new material selected, we click that first None box and we load up the PNG that we exported. And then we click Assign to assign that to our mesh. And you can see that looks a little bit weird. The transparency is off. So what we need to do is right click in the 3D viewport and go to Transparency, Depth Buffered with Alpha Reference. Then we go to Window, Texture Coordinate Editor, or alternatively, you can go Control T. And you can see that, okay, because we squashed the texture, now the texture and the mesh don't align to each other. So we need to fix that. In the mapping controls, we go to the Scale button. We can lock the X because we don't need to move it side to side. And then we just scale the Y to 2 and click that little S. And that's going to scale up it. Now we need to move it. We select the Move button. Then we make the offset -1 on the Y. So we're just moving it vertically, and that's going to scoot it up. So when we're done, it's going to look something like this. This is now aligned to the texture correctly. So we've got a small texture and we've remapped the mesh so that it aligns to the texture. And when we look at it in the 3D viewport, it looks like this now. Hey folks, me again one last time. So my intent was to create 2 different meshes, the conservationist mesh from the Maxis and a custom mesh from the Sims 2 resource, the dress. But for some reason, the dress didn't work out. There were issues sculpting it, fitting it to the Maxis body, so that never happened. But there are still remnants of that in the workshop, and I do apologize for that. I didn't have time to go back and remove those. So for the game file, so we go CAS. That's going to pull up all of the files that we have installed. Human, go gender male, age adult, And part type, I'm going clothing body. And you can filter it further by game pack, but I'm just looking for an example. I think most of these have already been converted. I need to post a link to MDP's database because that has a lot of valuable information in it. There was one that I wanted to convert specifically for this workshop. It's this one. So we grab that image, or we grab that file, and then we click next here. And I'm just going to call this conservationist AM test. Okay, so we get our conservationist loaded up. I don't know why I'm having trouble with that word. Just like so. We make sure that we're in the Studio tab. We make sure that we've got the diffuse texture selected. And we go export. Right to my project folder. Just give it a name like that. And it exports right to my projects folder. Then we need the mesh. So we go to the mesh tab. There are different LODs. Make sure that your dropdown is set to LOD 0. Export the mesh. Level of detail. Sims 4, I believe, depending on how far you zoom in, it's going to use a different LOD for that mesh. So LOD 0, that's when you're closest to the mesh, so it's probably going to be the most high poly. Okay, the next step, we need to open Blender 2.79. Then we go File, Open, and we'll start with the one that I exported from game, the Conservationist. So if you look on the upper right, where it says in the animations, where it says Rig, make sure that we click on that eyeball icon to show the joints, and then we click on the arrow icon to make sure that we can manipulate them. Then we right click on the right shoulder there. It should highlight as green. In the rotation, we select XYZ Euler in the dropdown. The Y-axis, we need to rotate that to 44. And then the Z is 9. And we're not too concerned with the arms because I'm just going to replace those with regular old Maxis AM arms. So then we click the right shoulder. We right click the joint there. We make sure that in the rotation mode, we're set to XYZ Euler. This time we're rotating in the opposite direction. So we go to negative 44. And the Z needs to be 9. Okay. That was not what I wanted to do. So all we did was rotate the arms a little bit. Now he's T-posing. We go File, Export, Wavefront OBJ. Then in our export options, we uncheck here where it says Objects as OBJ groups. Or sorry, that does need to be checked. But we need to make sure that we check material groups. We need to make sure that right materials is selected. And I'm just going to call this Conservationist AM. Export. Then Photoshop. We open. Brave Little Tailor. And let's open that black sequin. And why the heck not that conservation male. So I'll start with conservation male. We'll go Control Alt C to resize the canvas. We click that bottom arrow to lock the bottom edge, and we change the height to 1024. Click OK. And it's going to warn you about the canvas size. We proceed, and that just trimmed off all of that useless space. And I'm going to give it a different file name, Conservation Male Trim. Conservation Male Trim. Now we're ready for Milkshape. A file, import, wavefront object. Let's start with Conservationist AM. Cool. Now what we need to do, anything that doesn't say Sims 4 Studio, just going to go ahead and delete that. And this one isn't really anything, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. A lot of these are just empty. I think it's just the way that the model was exported. Okay, that one is just his fingers. We don't really need that because we're going to use Sims 2 arms. Okay, next, let's go ahead and clean the mesh up a little bit. So what we're going to do, we're going to select the vertices in this arm first. Anything that's just that is skin that we would replace with a Sims 2 model. We're just going to go ahead and delete that. So now we've just got a nice clean sleeve there. And then we do the same thing with the other arm. We just select the vertices for the arm and leave the shirt behind. And now we need to do the neck, and that's probably a little bit trickier. So in the side viewport, what I'm doing, I'm just zooming in as much as I can. Yeah, we're going to grab these neck vertices. You have to, well, is that the collar or is that the neck? That appears to be the neck. And this part's a little bit tedious, so bear with me. Let's have a look from the front because I think that might be easier. And let's turn on wireframe overlay so we can see which vertices we're actually selecting. Yep, those are correct. We're just trimming away anything that's like skin. Okay, what is going on there? See, you kind of have to pay attention to the side viewport because now we selected one of the vertices from the back. That's actually a part of the clothes. And we don't want that. We just want to delete the skin. We just got a little patch down there. It's fine because we're when we actually build the mesh next week, we're going to fill that in with the Sim's actual body. No, there's a hole in that mesh. I think I deleted something that I wasn't supposed to. What is going on there? That is missing a vertex. That's the way that it was imported, though. I haven't deleted anything from there. Okay, we might have to fix that little empty space there. Okay, so what I'm looking at, if you can't see it from chat, I'm going to make that bigger. There's an empty space there. And that's not anything that I deleted. It just, or it might have been when I deleted that group that had the little fingers in it. But it's fine. It's just, it's a small defect and we can fix that fairly easily. So we make sure that only these two vertices are selected, and then we go vertex, Sims to Unimesh vertex data merge. And that wasn't quite it because it moved to the inner one instead of the outer one. Okay, so with that vertex still selected, we go to model, then we go to move, and we make sure that the Z is isolated. So we just scoot that vertex forward a little bit, just like that. Okay, so now we have a nice clean mesh to work with. Another thing that we can do, so I know the arms aren't going to be in perfect alignment with these little sockets here. It's going to select the outside of, or rather the inside edge of the sleeve. Make sure that all of those are selected. Then we go to scale. We're not scaling on the X. We want to go to about 0.6 on the Y and about 0.6 on the Z. So we're scaling up and down and we're scaling front to back. There you go. Now the when we import the arms, they will fit that correctly. So at this point, if we wanted to, we could smooth. I might need to smooth the vest later, but I don't think we will need to really. So the next step, we go colored groups. So the mesh that we imported is yellow. We go File, Import, Wavefront, and we go AM full body. This is going to give us an idea how it fits to an actual Maxis body. And we can see that we've got a few issues. So hide the body. The first thing that I think we need to do is drag the sleeves down a little bit. So I think we're going to select the sleeves. Same thing over here. Then we unhide the mesh. We want to move on the Y, that's up and down, but not on the X. So we make sure that the X is unselected and move. And then we just kind of slide that sleeve down so that it fits correctly. And the shoulders are kind of popping out. So it looks a little lumpy, but I think we can live with it. So we turn off colored groups, we turn off wireframe overlay. And then we go to groups and we select this mesh. Then we go materials, new, and we look for the conservationist outfit that we trimmed down. We load that up in the material and we click the assign button. And we can see that the transparency is messed up. So we go transparency, depth buffered with alpha reference. Now we can see that the mapping is messed up. So we go window, texture coordinate editor. And then we go to scale. We lock the X and we scale the Y to 2 and we hit that S button. That's going to move our mesh down a little bit. So we need to go back to move. We need to move those vertices -1. And that's the ticket. So now it looks correct, but it's telling me when I go to texture coordinate editor that the back part of the mesh, the back collar, there are some extra vertices there. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Did I just miss someone I deleted? Yes, I see what happened. I think I see what happened. So just grab those. No, I think that's the actual inside of the collar. Oh, okay, it's a different part. Now we just got one vertex somewhere. That's extra, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, I see it. It's that one. Okay. Well, that is the conservationist outfit. It doesn't look, the sleeves could use a little bit of smoothing, but it doesn't look horrible. So I'm going to say this one. Conservationist AM. This is just the mesh. It's not, we haven't even begun to animate it yet. We're going to do that next week.